The impossible equation. Dr. Kalen Voss stared at the quantum readings with the kind of expression usually reserved for finding spiders in one's cereal. The numbers didn't just refuse to make sense, they actively mocked the fundamental laws of physics. "Run it again," he muttered to his AI assistant, Iris. "Kalen, I have run the simulation 47 times. The results remain consistent with impossibility." Kalen rubbed his temples. 3 months ago, humanity had made first contact with the galactic Concordat, a union of 238 species spanning 12,000 star systems. The message had been clear: humans were adorably primitive, their technology charmingly quaint, and their presence in the galaxy would be tolerated with the patronizing affection one might show a goldfish attempting calculus. The Concordat had sent an envoy, Ambassador Thexyler of the Varanthi, a being that resembled a crystalline mantis with too many eyes and an insufferable superiority complex. Thexyler had toured Earth's finest laboratories, examined humanity's most advanced propulsion systems, and delivered his verdict with the enthusiasm of a food critic reviewing gas station sushi. "Your species uses chemical rockets," Thexyler had said, his translator dripping with condescension. How wonderfully nostalgic. That single word, nostalgic, had burrowed into Kalen's brain like a parasitic earworm. The Varanthi had then explained, with the patience of someone teaching a toddler not to eat crayons, that humanity's understanding of physics was technically correct but tragically limited. Real civilizations used harmonic resonance drives, phased quantum tunneling, or consciousness-directed propulsion. Chemical combustion, Thexyler had sighed, is what children use for fireworks. Kalen had smiled politely during that meeting. He'd nodded. He'd thanked the ambassador for his insights. And then he'd gone back to his laboratory at the Nevada Advanced Physics Research Facility and done what humans do best when told something is impossible. He'd gotten spite motivated. The problem was simple. Every propulsion system in the known galaxy operated within the established framework of universal physical constants. The speed of light was a barrier. Quantum mechanics had rules. Energy conservation was non-negotiable. The Concordat had spent millions of years perfecting technologies that worked within these boundaries. Kalen's approach was different. If the universe had rules, he reasoned, then the universe was a system. And every system had exploits. The breakthrough had come during a 3 a.m. caffeine-fueled session when Kalen had stopped trying to work with physics and started trying to annoy it. He'd created a mathematical framework that didn't violate conservation of energy. It simply convinced the universe that energy was being conserved while quietly funneling the difference into a pocket dimension that probably shouldn't exist. "It's not cheating," Kalen had explained to his horrified colleague, Dr. Marissa Chin. "It's aggressive reinterpretation." "You've created a physics exploit," Marissa had said, staring at his equations. "You've basically found a glitch in reality." Exactly. The prototype drive sat in the center of the lab, a sphere of dark matter lattice wrapped in Penrose pattern quantum foam, humming with barely contained impossibility. According to every known law of physics, it shouldn't work. According to Kalen's mathematics, it should work spectacularly. Iris's voice interrupted his thoughts. "Incoming transmission from Concordat Command. Ambassador Thexyler requests permission to observe today's test." Kalen's smile could have cut glass. "Oh, absolutely. Tell His Excellency we'd be honored by his presence." 2 hours later, Thexyler stood in the observation gallery, his crystalline features arranged in what might have been polite interest or profound boredom. Kalen couldn't tell and didn't particularly care. "Dr. Voss," the ambassador said, "I understand you believe you've developed a new propulsion system. How ambitious." "We've made some progress," Kalen replied with weaponized modesty. "I'm certain it's very impressive by human standards. Though I should mention, the Concordat's introductory propulsion technology achieved speeds of 0.99 light speed. Yes, you mentioned. Several times." Thexyler's eyes flickered with something that might have been irritation. "Good." Marissa conducted the final pre-flight checks on the unmanned test vessel, a sleek drone equipped with the prototype drive. The target, Alpha Centauri. 4.37 light-years away. "Beginning activation sequence," Marissa announced. The drive hummed to life. Reality around the test vessel began to shimmer, like heat waves on desert asphalt. Space itself seemed uncertain about what was happening. "Interesting visual effect," Thexyler observed. "Our Phase 3 drives produce similar distortions before achieving." The test vessel vanished. Not accelerated. Not tunneled. Vanished. Iris's voice crackled through the speakers. "Receiving telemetry from Alpha Centauri. Transit time, 0.003 seconds. The observation gallery fell silent. That's... Thexyler's translator struggled to find words. That's not possible. Kalen's grin was absolutely feral. Yeah. About that impossibility thing. Turns out the universe doesn't actually care about your rules. It cares about momentum. And right now humanity's got plenty. Thexyler's crystalline body actually trembled. You've broken causality. You've violated fundamental. Nah, Kalen interrupted cheerfully. We just found a loophole. Big difference. The drone was already returning, crossing 4 light-years in the time it took to blink. Humanity's spike drive had just changed everything. Diplomatic incident. The emergency session of the Galactic Concordat Council convened within 8 hours of Kalen's test. Ambassador Thexyler stood before the assembled representatives of 238 species, his crystalline form flickering with agitation. They broke physics, he said without preamble. The humans broke physics. Counselor Yavish of the Morvani, a being resembling a floating jellyfish made of liquid starlight, pulsed with skepticism. Ambassador, your report suggests faster-than-light travel without quantum tunneling, harmonic resonance, or dimensional folding. This is clearly impossible. I watched it happen. Then your instruments malfunctioned. Their instruments. My instruments. The vessel arrived at Alpha Centauri instantaneously. There was no tunnel formation, no resonance cascade, no consciousness bridge. It simply moved. The council chamber erupted in multilingual chaos. After millions of years of technological development, the Concordat had mapped the boundaries of possibility. There were 17 known methods of faster-than-light travel, each operating within strict physical parameters. The idea that a species barely past chemical combustion had invented an 18th method was absurd. Supreme Arbiter Kellex, a four-armed being whose species had been spacefaring for 90,000 years, raised a hand for silence. This council has reviewed the transmitted data. While unusual, we suspect measurement error or perhaps a previously undiscovered wormhole. With respect, Supreme Arbiter, no. Thexyler projected the telemetry data. I have personally verified these readings. The humans have created something that should not exist. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Kalen was experiencing the unique joy of watching every major government and corporation attempt to simultaneously bribe, threaten, and worship him. Dr. Voss, on behalf of the United Earth Coalition, we're prepared to offer full funding. Dr. Voss, the Stellar Dynamics Corporation would like to discuss exclusive licensing. Dr. Voss, the People's Republic demands you share this technology for the good of. Kalen held up a hand, silencing the representatives crammed into his suddenly too small office. Gentlemen, ladies, non-binary colleagues, please. Let me make something clear. This isn't about money. This isn't about politics. This is about the fact that a crystalline mantis called our rocket science nostalgic. The room fell silent. I did this out of pure, distilled spite, Kalen continued. And now we're going to ride that spite all the way to the galactic big leagues. Marissa Chin leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. Kalen's right. We've proven the drive works. The question is, what do we do with it? We build more, said General Patricia Okonkwo, Earth's newly appointed liaison to the Concordat. Many more. And we do it before the Concordat decides to classify this technology as too dangerous for young species to possess. She wasn't wrong to worry. Across the galaxy, the Concordat was already convening emergency committees. The existence of humanity's spike drive represented a fundamental disruption to the established order. For millions of years, technological advancement had followed predictable paths. Species developed, matured, and integrated into the Concordat's framework. Humans had just skipped several thousand years of expected development and created something that made the Concordat's best engineers question their understanding of reality. Counselor Yavish reviewed the human data for the 15th time. I don't understand this. Their mathematics suggest they're exploiting a pocket dimension that oscillates between existence and non-existence. Which is impossible, another counselor added. And yet they've done it. Supreme Arbiter Kellex made a decision. We must acquire this technology. Peacefully, preferably. The humans are young, inexperienced. Offer them trade agreements, cultural exchanges, guarantees of protection. They'll accept out of fear or naivety. Thexyler's eyes flickered with doubt. Supreme Arbiter, with respect. I don't think they will. Why not? Because I insulted them. And I'm beginning to suspect that was a catastrophic error. Back on Earth, Kalen stood before a rapidly assembled press conference, flanked by representatives from every major Earth government. The questions came fast. Dr. Voss, how does the drive work? Aggressively. Will you share the technology with the Concordat? That depends. Will they apologize for calling our civilization adorably primitive? Is it true you invented this out of spite? Kalen's grin was magnificent. Spite is humanity's most underrated renewable resource. The press conference devolved into chaos, but the message was clear. Humanity was not interested in permission, approval, or integration into someone else's framework. They had built something impossible and they were keeping it. Within the week, the Concordat sent a formal delegation to negotiate. They arrived in ships that bent starlight around their hulls, technologies that represented millions of years of advancement. They expected to overwhelm Earth with the sheer weight of their sophistication. They found a species fitting their research vessels with spite drives. 17 ships, Marissa reported to Kalen. 17 operational spite drives, and we're manufacturing more daily. How are the pilots handling it? Commander Jackson Riley reported that her first jump felt like punching reality in the face. I think she meant it as a compliment. Kalen laughed. Commander Riley, Earth's most experienced test pilot, had volunteered for the first manned faster-than-light journey. She jumped to the Kuiper Belt and back in under a minute, giggling the entire time. The Concordat delegation, led by High Negotiator Vrex, arrived with the practiced superiority of beings accustomed to cosmic authority. They expected supplication, perhaps awe. General Okonkwo met them at the landing zone, flanked by 6 vessels equipped with spite drives. Welcome to Earth, she said pleasantly. Before we begin negotiations, I should mention we've scheduled a demonstration. Nothing major, just a quick trip to Proxima Centauri. 4.24 light-years. We'll be back before lunch. High Negotiator Vrex's translator struggled to convey his species equivalent of a choke. You're conducting casual interstellar travel? Oh yes. Commander Riley's actually made 3 jumps today. She's thinking about swinging by Tau Ceti this afternoon. Just for fun. The power dynamic had shifted. And the Concordat was beginning to realize that humanity didn't just break the rules, they'd rewritten the entire game. The domino effect. Commander Jackson Riley floated in the pilot's seat of the Vindictive Theorem, humanity's first spite drive-equipped exploration vessel. The name had been Kalen's idea, and Riley loved it with the passion of someone who'd spent her entire career being told what wasn't possible. Iris, status report, she said, running through pre-jump checks. All systems optimal, Commander. Spite drive charged to full capacity. Pocket dimension stable at 99.8% non-existence. Perfect. Let's go irritate some physics. The Vindictive Theorem vanished from Earth orbit and reappeared in the TRAPPIST-1 system, 39 light-years away, in less time than it took Riley to finish her sentence. Telemetry received, Iris reported. 7 terrestrial planets detected. 3 within habitable zone. And Commander, we have company. A Concordat survey vessel hung in space, its elegant curves and luminescent hull marking it as a Varanthi science ship. According to the Concordat's careful surveys, TRAPPIST-1 was scheduled for detailed analysis in approximately 80 standard years. Humanity had just arrived first. Riley opened a communication channel. Concordat vessel, this is Commander Jackson Riley of Earth ship Vindictive Theorem. Beautiful system you've got here. Mind if we take a look around? The response took several seconds. The Varanthi captain was probably experiencing the cognitive equivalent of a system crash. Earth vessel, how did you traveled 39 light-years in? In about 3 seconds, yeah. New drive system. It's pretty neat. So, about those planets? This system is registered for Concordat survey in year cycle 7720. Riley's grin was audible through the comm channel. Well, we're here now. First come, first served, right? That's how exploration works. Back on Earth, the implications were spreading like wildfire through human civilization. The spite drive hadn't just made faster-than-light travel possible, it had made it trivial. Systems that would take the Concordat centuries to reach were now a short hop away for human vessels. Kalen stood before a holographic map of local space, adding markers for each system humanity could now easily access. Marissa watched over his shoulder, her expression caught between excitement and mild terror. We're leapfrogging the entire galactic civilization, she said quietly. Yep. They're going to be furious. Yep. You're smiling. Also yep. The Concordat's response came in the form of High Diplomat Serix, a being whose species had pioneered the art of bureaucratic intimidation over 12,000 years. Serix arrived on Earth with 7 ships, each bristling with the kind of casual technological superiority that usually made primitive species reconsider their life choices. General Okonkwo met them with a single vessel, the Spiteful Regards, captained by the magnificently stubborn Lieutenant Zarankosi. "Hi, Diplomat Serix," Okonkwo said pleasantly. "Welcome to Earth. I trust your journey was comfortable if a bit slow." Serix's translator conveyed profound displeasure. "General Okonkwo, we must discuss your species' recent activities." "Of course. But first, might I offer a demonstration? Lieutenant Nkosi has volunteered to show you something interesting." Without waiting for a response, Nkosi activated the Spite drive. The Spiteful Regards flickered through 7 different star systems in rapid succession: Proxima Centauri, Barnard Star, Wolf 359, Lalande 21185, Sirius, Ross 154, and back to Earth, completing a journey that would take Concordat vessels months in approximately 40 seconds. "Now then," Okonkwo continued as if nothing had happened, "what did you want to discuss?" Serix's response was a prolonged silence that spoke volumes. Meanwhile, human explorers were discovering something the Concordat had kept quiet. The galaxy was full of interesting things. Ruins of ancient civilizations. Resource-rich systems deemed too far for profitable exploitation. Phenomena that the Concordat had catalogued but never bothered to investigate thoroughly because the travel time wasn't worth it. Humanity, with their spite drives, suddenly had access to all of it. "This is the archaeological find of the millennium," Dr. Ilara Kim transmitted from the Epsilon Eridani system. "Possibly the millennium before this one too. There's a megastructure here, a partial Dyson swarm, abandoned for at least 50,000 years." Kalen reviewed her data, his expression shifting from interest to delight. "The Concordat knew about this? They have it catalogued as Ancient Debris Field 7743b. They plan to send a research team in about 600 years. Too slow. We'll have it mapped by next Thursday." The Concordat watched in growing alarm as humanity spread across local space like an enthusiastic infection. Every day brought new reports: humans at Wolf 1061, humans at Gliese 832, humans poking around ancient ruins, humans claiming asteroids, humans showing up at systems that weren't supposed to be accessible for centuries. Supreme Arbiter Kellix convened another emergency session. "This cannot continue. The humans are disrupting established survey schedules, claiming systems without proper authorization, and demonstrating a flagrant disregard for protocol." "With respect," Counselor Yavish interjected, "they're not actually breaking any laws. We never bothered to create laws about instant travel because we didn't think it was possible. Then we write new laws. And enforce them how? They can outrun any vessel we send after them." Thexyler, who had been quiet throughout the session, finally spoke. "Supreme Arbiter, I recommend a different approach. The humans are acting like this because we treated them with condescension. Perhaps if we apologize." Kellix's tone suggested he'd rather eat vacuum. "To a species barely past chemical combustion? A species that has redefined what's possible," Thexyler corrected quietly, "and is currently exploring regions of space we can't effectively reach." The Concordat was facing an uncomfortable truth: humanity had broken their carefully ordered galaxy, and there was absolutely nothing they could do about it. Commander Riley, currently investigating a fascinating stellar phenomenon near HD 40307, summed it up perfectly in her log. "Dear Concordat, should have been nicer. Signed, Humanity." Unintended consequences. 3 months after the Spite Drive's debut, Kalen stood in his laboratory staring at equations that were giving him a migraine. Iris's avatar flickered with what might have been concern. "Kalen, the data from the latest jump shows increased dimensional instability. The pocket dimension we're exploiting is becoming more reactive." "Reactive how?" "It appears to be learning." Kalen set down his coffee. "I'm sorry, what?" Iris displayed a cascade of quantum measurements. "Each time we use the Spite drive, the pocket dimension's behavior changes slightly. It's adapting to our exploitation. The universe is, for lack of a better term, developing an immune response." Across the galaxy, high physicist Torvin of the Concordat sat in his laboratory experiencing a similar revelation. He'd been analyzing the disruptions caused by human travel, and the patterns were deeply disturbing. "They're not just breaking physics," he muttered to his assistant. "They're teaching it to break differently." The Concordat had spent millions of years working with the fundamental forces of the universe. They'd developed technologies that harmonized with natural law, that respected the boundaries of possibility. Humanity had taken one look at those boundaries and decided they were more like suggestions, The consequences were starting to manifest in unexpected ways. Lieutenant Zara Nkosi was en route to the Ross 128 system when her spite drive began behaving strangely. The pocket dimension, instead of its usual flickering between existence and non-existence, seemed to hiccup. Iris, what was that? Unknown, Lieutenant. The dimension appears to have briefly sneezed. Dimensions don't sneeze. They also shouldn't exist in a state of quantum maybiness, yet here we are. The spiteful regards emerged from the jump not at Ross 128, but at a completely different star system, one that wasn't on any Concordat charts. The space around them shimmered with colors that shouldn't exist, and the stars formed patterns that hurt to look at. Iris, where are we? I don't know. These coordinates don't correspond to any known region of space. In fact, these coordinates suggest we're approximately 700 light-years from our starting point, which should have been impossible even with the spite drive. Nkosi stared at the impossible stars. Get Kalen on the line. Now. Back on Earth, Kalen received Nkosi's transmission with a mixture of fascination and dread. You jumped 700 light-years? Accidentally. And Kalen, there's something here. Structures. Not natural formations, artificial constructs on a scale that makes Dyson spheres look like sandcastles. Marissa Chin reviewed the transmitted data, her expression darkening. Kalen, these readings are similar to the pocket dimension we've been exploiting. Whoever built these structures was using the same fundamental principle. Someone else found the glitch? Found it, exploited it, and built an entire civilization around it. Past tense. These structures are old, Kalen. Millions of years old. And they're all abandoned. The implications hit like a freight train. They weren't the first species to discover this exploit. And whoever had come before them had apparently disappeared. Kalen initiated an emergency meeting with the United Earth Coalition and, reluctantly, the Concordat. General Okonkwo presided, her expression grim. Ambassador Thexyler, have you ever encountered anything like this? The Varanthi's crystalline form pulsed with an emotion Kalen had never seen from him before. Genuine fear. No. And that terrifies me. The Concordat has records dating back 2 million years. We've never found evidence of a civilization that could build on this scale. Supreme Arbiter Kelix appeared via hologram, his 4 arms crossed in a gesture that transcended species barriers. Dr. Voss. Your spite drive has led to the discovery of something that should not exist. The Concordat formally requests that you share all data related to this finding. Requests. Kalen raised an eyebrow. Please, Kelix added, and the word seemed to physically pain him. High physicist Torvin joined the conference, his tentacled form coiled with anxiety. I have been studying the quantum disruptions caused by human travel. The mathematics suggest that the pocket dimension you're exploiting isn't empty. It's occupied. By what? Marissa demanded. By the remains of civilizations that used this same technology. Every time you jump, you're passing through what amounts to a cosmic graveyard. The room fell silent. Commander Riley, who'd been listening from the vindictive theorem, broke the quiet. So you're saying there's a reason the universe has rules against this kind of travel? Not rules, Torvin corrected. Warnings. The universe doesn't forbid spite drives because it's impossible. It makes it difficult because it's dangerous. Kalen felt the weight of unintended consequences settling on his shoulders. He'd been so focused on proving humanity could break the rules that he'd never stopped to wonder why the rules existed in the first place. We need to investigate those structures, he said finally. We need to understand what happened to whoever built them. Thexyler's eyes flickered with something that might have been respect. For once, Dr. Voss, we are in complete agreement. The Concordat and humanity, united by mutual concern, began organizing a joint expedition to the mysterious structures. It was the first time in the Concordat's history that they treated a young species as an equal partner. All it had taken was accidentally stumbling into evidence of a cosmic-scale disaster. Lieutenant Nkosi transmitted final scans of the alien megastructures. One image in particular caught everyone's attention. A monument, weathered by time but still legible, bearing symbols in a mathematical language that transcended species. Dr. Ilara Kim, humanities xenolinguistics expert, translated it with trembling hands. It's a warning. It says, we thought we were clever. We thought we'd found freedom. We were wrong. The universe is not a system to be exploited. It's an ecosystem. And we became the invasive species. Kalen stared at the translation, feeling his spite drive victory turn to ash in his mouth. Humanity had broken physics. Now they needed to figure out how to fix it before the universe fixed them. The summit of consequences. The Joint Concordat Human Research Station materialized in neutral space, a massive structure built in record time through an unprecedented cooperation between species that had, weeks ago, barely tolerated each other's existence. Kalen floated in the zero-gravity observation deck, watching ships arrive from across known space. Varanthi crystal ships glided alongside human spite drive vessels. Morvani bioships pulsed with bioluminescent communication patterns while Earth's military escorts maintained careful formations. "Never thought I'd see the day," Marissa said, joining him at the viewport. "Humanity and the Concordat working together. Fear is an excellent motivator," Kalen replied. "Turns out, we might accidentally destroy reality. Trumps, they called us primitive." The summit convened in a chamber designed to accommodate 238 different species anatomies. Supreme Arbiter Kellic stood at the center, his forearms spread in a gesture of unity that looked deeply uncomfortable on him. "We gather to address an unprecedented crisis," Kellic began. "The human spite drive has revealed something we cannot ignore. The universe itself may be fighting back." High physicist Torvin projected a holographic model of spacetime, riddled with spreading fractures. Every spite drive jump creates micro-tears in dimensional stability. Individually, these are negligible. But humanity has conducted over 17,000 jumps in 3 months. The damage is cumulative. "And accelerating," added Dr. Kim, her data overlaying Torvin's model. "We've detected reality fluctuations in systems near heavy jump traffic. Space itself is becoming unstable." Commander Riley, attending via hologram from the field, interjected, "We've encountered 3 more dead civilizations. All of them used variants of dimensional exploitation. All of them vanished between 50,000 and 2 million years ago. The timeline correlation is impossible to ignore." Counselor Yavish pulsed with a color that conveyed deep unease. "What happened to them?" "Best guess." Kalen pulled up his analysis. "They broke reality so thoroughly that reality broke them back. We're seeing evidence of dimensional collapse, causality violations, and in one case, an entire star system that simultaneously exists and doesn't exist." "Schrodinger's solar system," Marissa murmured. "Fantastic." Ambassador Thexyler spoke, his crystalline form refracting the chamber's light into prismatic patterns. "Dr. Voss, you created this technology out of spite. Can you uncreate it out of common sense?" Kalen laughed bitterly. "That's the problem. I can't. The math is out there. The proof of concept exists. Even if humanity stopped using spite drives tomorrow, someone else would build them. The galaxy knows it's possible now. Then we need regulations," General Okonkwo stated firmly. "Usage limits, restricted zones, mandatory rest periods between jumps to allow dimensional healing." Supreme Arbiter Kellic nodded slowly. "The Concordat can establish guidelines, but enforcement would require everyone to agree," Kalen finished. "And there are probably a dozen species already reverse engineering the principles." As if on cue, Iris's voice interrupted, "Kalen, we're receiving reports from 6 different Concordat member species. They've each independently developed spite drive variants. Jump traffic has increased by 400% in the last 48 hours. The summit dissolved into chaos. Species representatives shouted over each other in languages that translation matrices struggled to process. Accusations flew. Threats were made. The careful diplomatic progress collapsed like a house of cards in a hurricane. Kalen watched the pandemonium with a sick feeling in his stomach. He'd wanted to prove humanity wasn't primitive. He'd succeeded spectacularly. And in doing so, he'd potentially doomed the entire galaxy. A new voice cut through the noise, young, human, and entirely unexpected. "Excuse me. Excuse me." The chamber fell silent. A hologram materialized. Lieutenant Kira Vasquez, one of Earth's youngest spite drive pilots, currently stationed at the edge of the Helix Nebula. "I'm sorry to interrupt the summit," Vasquez said, "but you need to see this. Now." She transmitted sensor data that made every physicist in the room inhale sharply. A region of space approximately 3 light-years in diameter was exhibiting properties that shouldn't exist. Time moved at different rates in different areas. Physical constants varied by location. Causality had apparently taken a holiday. "This is directly along one of the major spite drive routes," Vasquez explained. "Hundreds of jumps per day through this region. And it's growing. Current expansion rate suggests it'll engulf the Ross 154 system within 6 standard months." Dr. Alara Kim studied the data, her face pale. "It's a reality cancer. We've literally given the universe a malignant tumor." Torvin's tentacles nodded with anxiety. If this continues spreading, it could cascade through connected spacetime. The entire local cluster could become unstable. How do we stop it? Kellex demanded. Every physicist in the room exchanged glances. The answer was written in their expressions. They had no idea. Kalen stared at the spreading anomaly, his mind racing through possibilities. The spite drive worked by exploiting dimensional weaknesses. But what if instead of exploiting those weaknesses, they could reinforce them? We've been thinking about this wrong, he said slowly. We've been treating spacetime like a system to hack. But it's more like an ecosystem. We're an invasive species and we need to become symbiotic instead. Meaning? Marissa prompted. Meaning we don't stop using spite drives. We evolve them. Create a version that heals dimensional damage as it travels instead of causing it. Turn our ships into cosmic white blood cells instead of viruses. Thexyler's eyes flickered with cautious hope. Is that possible? I broke physics once already, Kalen replied. I can break it in the opposite direction. Supreme Arbiter Kellex stood silent for a long moment, then spoke with a gravity that hushed the chamber. Dr. Voss. The Concordat places its full resources at your disposal. Whatever you need, facilities, materials, personnel, consider it yours. We will also enforce an immediate 50% reduction in spite drive usage until a solution is developed. General Okonkwo nodded. Earth concurs. We'll ground half our fleet voluntarily. Counselor Yavish pulsed with determination. The Morvani offer our biotech expertise. If we're creating symbiotic technology, we have millennia of experience in such matters. Species after species pledged support. The summit that had dissolved into chaos 5 minutes ago was now unified by the simple, terrifying fact that they were all in existential danger. Kalen felt the weight of the galaxy settle on his shoulders. He'd created this problem. Now he had to fix it. Give me 6 months, he said. 6 months and I'll give you Spite Drive's version 2.0. The kind that makes the universe healthier, not sicker. And if you can't? Someone asked. Kalen's grin was sharp enough to cut spacetime itself. Then we're all going to find out what happens when reality decides to uninstall itself. So I'd better not fail. The summit adjourned with humanity and the Concordat working together for the first time in history, united by the common goal of preventing cosmic apocalypse. As Kalen headed back to his laboratory, Marissa caught his arm. Can you actually do this? Honestly? I have no idea. But I did the impossible once out of spite. Maybe I can do it again out of sheer terror. That's not exactly reassuring. No, Kalen agreed, staring at the spreading reality cancer on his data pad. No, it's really not. Redemption mathematics. Kalen hadn't slept in 4 days. His laboratory had become a fusion of human chaos and Concordat precision. Earth's best physicists working alongside beings whose species had been studying quantum mechanics since before humanity discovered fire. This is impossible, Dr. Torvin said for the 15th time, his tentacles gesturing at the holographic equations floating between them. So was the spite drive, Kalen countered, adding another variable to the matrix. Impossible just means we haven't figured it out yet. Marissa Chin monitored the simulations, her expression caught between exhaustion and determination. Simulation 43 failed. The dimensional repair protocol causes localized time dilation that would turn any ship using it into a relativistic nightmare. So we compensate for temporal displacement, Kalen muttered, scribbling modifications. With what? Counselor Yavish pulsed, their bioluminescent form dimming with fatigue. You're trying to create a drive that heals spacetime while simultaneously traveling faster than light without causing additional damage. The mathematical requirements are absurd, Kalen suggested. Yeah, I'm familiar with absurd. I majored in it. Ambassador Thexyler observed from the corner, his crystalline body reflecting the laboratory's light into rainbow patterns. Over the past weeks, something had shifted in the Varanthe. The condescension had evaporated, replaced by something almost like respect. Dr. Voss, Thexyler said quietly, may I offer a perspective? Kalen looked up, surprised. Sure. The Concordat has spent millions of years perfecting technologies that work within natural law. We've created wonders, yes, but we've also become rigid, constrained by our own success. Thexyler's eyes flickered with something that might have been admiration. You humans are chaos incarnate. You see a rule and immediately wonder if you can break it. It's terrifying and magnificent in equal measure. Is there a point to this? Marissa asked, not unkindly. The point, Thexyler continued, is that perhaps the solution requires both approaches. Concordat wisdom and human audacity. You've been trying to solve this alone, Dr. Voss. But what if the answer lies in true collaboration? Kalen stared at the Varanthi ambassador, then at the equations, then back at Thexyler. Something clicked in his mind. Iris, pull up the Morvani biotech harmonization protocols. Kalen, those are designed for living systems, not spacecraft, Marissa objected. Exactly. What if we stop thinking of the spite drive as a machine and start thinking of it as a living system? The universe is an ecosystem, right? So we need a drive that behaves like an organism, not a tool. Dr. Torvin's tentacles suddenly went rigid. You want to create a biological drive system. Not biological. Biomimetic. We use Morvani harmonization principles combined with Varanthi crystalline computing and human spite-based reality exploitation. A hybrid system that learns, adapts, and heals as it operates. The laboratory erupted in frantic activity. Species that had never collaborated before began sharing millennia of accumulated knowledge. The Morvani contributed their understanding of symbiotic systems. The Varanthi offered quantum crystalline matrices that could process reality fluctuations in real time. Humanity provided the aggressive creativity needed to make impossibility work. 72 hours later they had a prototype. The reconciliation drive, named by committee after much argument, sat in the testing chamber like a contradiction given form. It pulsed with bioluminescent patterns borrowed from Morvani biotech. Crystalline structures sang with Varanthi harmonic frequencies, and at its core the same dimensional exploit that Kalen had discovered months ago, but inverted. Instead of tearing holes in reality, it would stitch them closed. Commander Riley volunteered to test it because of course she did. The vindictive theorem has been refitted with the reconciliation drive, she reported from the pilot's seat. I'm ready when you are. Kalen stood in mission control, surrounded by representatives from a dozen species. The weight of the moment pressed down on everyone present. If this worked, they'd proven that cooperation could solve problems that individual genius couldn't. If it failed, the reality cancer would continue spreading. Activate on your mark, Commander, Kalen said. Riley's voice came through crystal clear. Here's to breaking physics in the right direction. Activating reconciliation drive in 3, 2, 1. The vindictive theorem didn't vanish like spite drive vessels did. Instead, it seemed to harmonize with space itself, vibrating at frequencies that made reality sing. It moved from Earth to Alpha Centauri, but this time the journey left something behind. Healed spacetime, dimensional wounds knitted closed, quantum stability restored. Telemetry incoming, Iris reported. Transit successful. Time dilation within acceptable parameters. And Kalen, the dimensional damage along the route has decreased by 47%. The control room exploded in cheers that transcended species barriers. Humans hugged Varanthi. Morvani pulsed with joy colors that needed no translation. Even Supreme Arbiter Kelix, watching via hologram, allowed himself a small smile. But Kalen's attention was on the larger picture. Iris, plot a course to the reality cancer. Commander Riley, think you can handle another jump? Doc, I could do this all day. The vindictive theorem made 7 more jumps, each one following the major spite drive routes, each one leaving healed spacetime in its wake. When Riley finally reached the expanding anomaly near Ross 154, she activated the reconciliation drive at maximum power. The effect was spectacular. The reality cancer, which had been spreading like cosmic gangrene, began to shrink. The biomimetic systems in the reconciliation drive didn't just heal the damage, they taught the universe how to heal itself. It's working, Dr. Kim reported, her voice trembling with relief. The cascade effect is reversing. The anomaly is contracting at approximately 1 light-year per hour. General Okonkwo watched the data with satisfaction. How long until it's completely resolved? At current rates, approximately 60 hours. And Commander Riley, how are you holding up? Riley's laugh crackled through the comm. General, this feels like apologizing to the universe. It's weirdly cathartic. Across the galaxy, more ships were being fitted with reconciliation drives. The Concordat had mobilized their considerable manufacturing capabilities, and humanity had contributed their rapidly developing spite drive production infrastructure. Within weeks, hundreds of vessels were traversing the old spite drive routes, healing the damage that months of exploitation had caused. The process wasn't instant. There were setbacks and failures. Some dimensional wounds proved resistant to healing. Some regions required multiple passes. But slowly, methodically, the combined fleet of Concordat and human vessels began repairing the fabric of reality. Kalen watched it all from his laboratory, feeling something he hadn't expected: hope. Thexyler found him there, staring at the star map showing healed regions glowing with healthy quantum signatures. "Dr. Voss," the Varanthi said quietly, "I owe you an apology." Kalen turned, surprised. "For what?" "For calling your civilization nostalgic. Primitive. For treating humanity with condescension when you deserved respect." Thexyler's crystalline form seemed to dim slightly. "You taught us something important, that breaking rules isn't always destructive. Sometimes it's necessary. And that cooperation can achieve what individual brilliance cannot." Kalen felt his spite, the fuel that had driven him for months, finally begin to fade. "You know what? Apology accepted. And for what it's worth, thank you." "For what?" "For being condescending enough to piss me off. If you'd been nice from the start, I might never have invented the spite drive. And while that would have avoided this whole mess, it also would have meant we never learned to work together." Thexyler's eyes flickered with something that might have been amusement. "So you're saying I helped save the galaxy by being an insufferable elitist?" "Basically, yeah. That's the most backhanded redemption I've ever experienced." Marissa joined them, carrying 3 containers of coffee, or the closest alien equivalent she could manage for Thexyler. "To breaking physics responsibly," she said, raising her cup. Kalen and Thexyler joined the toast. "To breaking physics responsibly." The reality cancer would be fully healed within a month. The reconciliation drive would become standard technology, replacing the original spite drives entirely. Humanity and the Concordat would continue collaborating, their combined capabilities pushing the boundaries of possibility in ways that neither could achieve alone. But for now, in this moment, 3 scientists from different worlds simply enjoyed the satisfaction of solving an impossible problem together. A new equilibrium. 6 months after the reconciliation drive's deployment, Kalen stood before the Galactic Concordat Assembly as humanity's official representative. The chamber was the same one where, half a year ago, chaos had reigned and doom had seemed inevitable. Today the atmosphere was different. Cautiously optimistic. Warily hopeful. Supreme Arbiter Kelix opened the proceedings. "Dr. Kalen Voss of Earth. This assembly recognizes your contributions to galactic stability and extends humanity's probationary membership in the Concordat to full partnership status." The chamber erupted in applause, or its equivalent across 238 species. Kalen noticed that the sounds weren't universal. Some species remained skeptical. Others were openly hostile to humanity's rapid ascension. But enough supported the motion that it passed with overwhelming majority. "However," Kelix continued, and the chamber quieted, "this partnership comes with conditions. Humanity will share reconciliation drive technology freely with all Concordat members. In exchange, you will have full access to Concordat databases, trade networks, and defense agreements." Kalen nodded. "Earth accepts these terms." "There's more," Counselor Yavish pulsed. "Humanity will also join the newly formed Department of Dimensional Integrity, tasked with monitoring spacetime stability and preventing future reality-threatening technologies from being deployed without proper testing." "Also acceptable," Kalen agreed. "Though I'd like to suggest we rename it the Department of Breaking Things Responsibly." A ripple of laughter, or its multi-species equivalent, rolled through the chamber. Kalen caught Thexyler's eyes flickering with amusement. General Okonkwo spoke via holographic presence. "The United Earth Coalition also proposes a joint research initiative, Project Symbiosis. We've proven that combining human innovation with Concordat wisdom yields remarkable results. Why stop now?" "Agreed," Kelix said without hesitation. "Though I suggest we include oversight committees." "Enthusiastic." "Reckless," someone corrected. "Let's split the difference and call it boldly ambitious," Marissa Chin interjected from her seat in the human delegation. The vote passed unanimously. Later, in a smaller conference room, the architects of humanity's redemption gathered for a more informal celebration. Kalen, Marissa, General Okonkwo, Commander Riley, Thexyler, Torvin, Counselor Yavish, and Dr. Kim, the team that had saved reality through stubbornness and spite. "To the galaxy's most dysfunctional problem-solving team," Riley said, raising her glass. "Hear, hear," the group chorused. Torvin's tentacles coiled thoughtfully. "You know, we still don't fully understand why the reconciliation drive works. The mathematics suggest it should be just as unstable as the original spite drive." "Best not to think about it too hard," Kalen advised. "Sometimes the universe accepts apologies in forms that don't make logical sense." "That's not very scientific," Yavish pointed out. Neither is finding a glitch in reality and exploiting it for faster-than-light travel, Marissa countered. We passed very scientific, several star systems ago. Thexyler's crystalline form caught the light, casting prismatic patterns across the walls. I've been thinking about our next project. There are still those abandoned megastructures Lieutenant Nkosi discovered. We never did finish investigating what happened to their builders. You want to poke ancient cosmic mysteries? Riley asked. After we just barely avoided destroying reality? Well, when you put it that way, it sounds reckless. It is reckless. But also fascinating. General Okonkwo smiled. I think we've earned the right to be cautiously reckless. With oversight committees. So many oversight committees, Kalen agreed. But yeah, I'm in. Those structures are still out there, and they represent civilizations that made the same mistakes we did. We owe it to them and to ourselves to learn what went wrong. Dr. Kim pulled up holographic data on the ancient ruins. I've been analyzing the warning monument. The mathematical language they use suggests they were incredibly advanced. They might have left behind knowledge that could help us avoid their fate entirely. Or blueprints for even more reality-breaking technology, Marissa said dryly. Also possible, Kim admitted. The group fell into comfortable silence, each contemplating the implications. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage with characteristic chaos, broken fundamental rules of physics, nearly destroyed reality, and then fixed their mistake through unprecedented cooperation. It was by any measure an eventful first year. You know what I find most interesting? Thexyler said eventually. 6 months ago I thought humanity was a quaint curiosity. Primitive. Cute even. Now I can't imagine solving galactic-scale problems without them. Character development, Riley quipped. Very impressive for a crystalline mantis. I could say the same about accepting help from species we once considered superior, Okonkwo noted. Earth's learned some humility. Not a lot, but some. Baby steps, Kalen agreed. Iris's voice interrupted the moment. Kalen, incoming data from the monitoring stations along the former Spite Drive routes. The dimensional healing continues to exceed projections. At current rates, all damaged spacetime will be fully restored within 3 months. Good news for once, Marissa said. I was getting tired of everything being a crisis. Oh, there's more, Iris continued. The healing process has revealed something interesting. Several regions where dimensional damage was most severe now show enhanced stability. Space in those areas is actually more robust than it was before we damaged it. Torvin's tentacles nodded with excitement. Fascinating. The universe isn't just healing, it's adapting. Learning from the damage to become more resilient. Like scar tissue, Yavish pulsed. Stronger than the original. Kalen felt a smile spread across his face. So by breaking physics we actually made it better in the long run. Don't let that go to your head, Marissa warned. Too late. Way too late. The celebration continued into the evening, or what passed for evening in a space station that didn't have a sun. Stories were shared, jokes were told across translation barriers, and bonds were strengthened between species that had, months ago, barely tolerated each other's existence. Commander Riley found Kalen on the observation deck hours later, staring at the stars. Contemplating your legacy? She asked. Something like that. I set out to prove humanity wasn't primitive. I succeeded, nearly destroyed reality, then fixed it. I'm not sure what the lesson is supposed to be. Riley leaned against the viewport beside him. Maybe the lesson is that being clever isn't enough. You also need to be responsible. And that even when you screw up catastrophically, you can still make things right if you're willing to work with people you'd rather spite. That's surprisingly deep for someone who describes faster-than-light travel as punching reality in the face. I contain multitudes. They stood in comfortable silence, watching human and Concordat vessels pass by, their reconciliation drives leaving trails of healed spacetime in their wake. What's next for you? Riley asked. Project Symbiosis. Investigating those ancient structures. Maybe finally getting some sleep. Kalen grinned. And definitely finding new and exciting ways to annoy the universe into giving up its secrets. Responsibly though. Responsibly. With oversight committees. And probably still driven by spite. Oh, absolutely. Spite got us here. I'm not abandoning it now. I'm just redirecting it toward constructive purposes. Riley laughed. The galaxy has no idea what it's in for. Nope, Kalen agreed cheerfully. But at least now we're their problem together. Across the galaxy, reality continued its healing process. Spite drives were decommissioned and replaced with reconciliation systems. The threat of cosmic collapse faded into memory. Species that had existed in rigid hierarchy for millions of years began experimenting with collaboration. And in laboratories on Earth and across Concordat space, scientists of every species worked together on Project Symbiosis, pushing boundaries, breaking rules responsibly, and discovering that the universe was far stranger and more wonderful than anyone had imagined. The ancient megastructures still waited, silent monuments to civilizations that had learned too late the cost of breaking reality. But this time humanity and the Concordat would approach them together, armed with humility, cooperation, and the hard-won knowledge that some rules exist for good reasons. And maybe, just maybe, a little bit of carefully applied spite.